In today's video, we're going to take some inspiration from beautiful roses. I'm going to show you 5 different ways that you can embroider them. Hi everyone, Sarah from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. We're going to jump straight into this one because I've got lots of lovely beautiful flowers to show you, but I just want to show you this first. I've got a free PDF with the designs that I'm going to use in this video. If you want to have a go at some roses, there's some little designs on there. Everyone that's on the frame that I'm going to show you is also on here, plus some extra ones as well, so you can download that for free from the free stuff page of the website. The link is in the description below this video. So the first one that I'm going to show you is a woven wheel, and that's what it's going to look like here. Now I have done this stitch in lots of different videos before. I just want to show you quickly what it looks like. There it is. But I found a way to make them even more puffy and even more rose-like, lots of lovely petals in it. So I'm going to show you a slightly different version of that today. So I've drawn on where I want my rose to go, and I've done that with a water erasable pen. This just means that if I don't go to the very edge of the line, I don't cover it up, I can get rid of the line afterwards. So if you do draw this on permanently, make sure you cover your line. Little tip there for you. And I'm going to use stranded cottons throughout this video. You can use different threads if you want. You can try them out in a bit of fabric first to see what they look like. So I'm going to use stranded cottons. I'll let you know how many strands I'm using as I work it. So I'm going to use all 6 strands for this rose to get really nice 3-dimensional effect if I use all 6. I'm just going to start the way I normally do, a little knot on the top and 2 small stitches inside the shape. This will get covered. If you want to know about this, there's a video on how to start and finish your threads if you're wondering why I'm doing it this way. It's 2 little stitches. And then when we get stitching, we can cut that knot off. That knot will disappear. So I'm just going to put my framework in to weave around. Now what I would normally do with this is put 5 spokes in. So for that one I just showed you I used 5. I'm only going to use 3 this time, and that's what gives me this lovely 3-dimensional effect. So I'm just coming from the top. I'm going to find the center of my circle, and I'm just going to put 3 in. Don't need to be really accurate, don't get your measuring equipment out, just have a rough guess. So that's 2. I'm going to get rid of that knot now. Put a few stitches in. That thread's nice and secure. So I'm going to come up over here, roughly splitting the circle into 3, like so. And I'm just going to use that to weave around. So I'm going to go over and under. I'm going to come up right near to the middle. And I'm actually using a tapestry needle for this blunt end so I don't get caught in the threads as I go round. And I'm just going to go over and under all the way round. So I've come up here. I'm going to go, I'll go under, I think. Doesn't matter which way you go first. I'll go under initially, under there, over this one, under this one. Feeling it fairly tight initially, over this one, under this one. Now because there's only 3 spokes, I can go around the shape quite quickly. If you've done this before with more spokes, then it'll take a little bit longer. So this is quite quick. So just watch your tension, nice and loose tension on this. Don't pull these too tight. You can see I'm just guiding it round. It's got the thread sitting where I want it to sit. Because we've not got so many spokes, these will tend to stick up a little bit, and that's what makes it fluffy later. So nice and even tension on that, over that one, under, all the way around till we've filled up the shape. So keep going until you've covered your little circle. You've gone right to the edge of these spokes. You can't see the spokes anymore. You can really see how gentle I'm being with this. Don't pull it too tight or this will all shrink up and it'll be a tiny little rest. So quite loose. And this is a big long stitch. When you get to the edge you get these really long stitches, but that's okay. Try not to catch anything with the needle. So that's under that one, over that one, under that one. Just going to do one more around to there, and then when you think you're done you can just take your needle through to the back of the fabric, just nice and slowly so you don't pull up all of those stitches. So I've just turned it over to show you what to do with this on the back. So I've got some stitches here. I'm just going to take it underneath those stitches and back again. Don't pull this tight, the rose will disappear on the front. Nice and gentle with this. You can make a little loop, you can go through the loop and just tie that off, and then we just go through once more just for good luck. And then you can just cut off that thread So your thread's nice and secure, and now we just need to fluff up the rose. I'm just going to get the needle. I'm just going to encourage these threads. Good word, encourage them up a little bit. Don't pull on them, I'm just sort of fluffing them up a little bit, and we get these beautiful three-dimensional roses. So a really nice alternative to my normal woven wheel stitch that I've done in previous videos, so just fewer spokes just to make that really nice fluffy rose. And you can just do one more thing. If you do it in silk ribbon as well, exactly the same technique, you can do this with your silk ribbons, and you get beautiful roses with your silk ribbons. So have a little play with the materials you use as well, different kinds of threads. Silk ribbons work beautifully, and I will show you how to do these leaves. I'm going to use these leaves throughout all of the rose projects, so I'll show you how to do those in the next one. So let's have a quick look at the leaves. Sometimes it's good to put them on first and then the rose on the top afterwards. So I'm going to show you a fly stitch. This is just one way of making them. I'll show you a video at the end that you can go and check out with lots of different ways to make leaves. So I'm just putting a little point on the end of my leaf. I'm coming up to the left. I'm going down to the right. Don't pull that all the way through, but make yourself a little loop. I'm actually going to cut that knot off because it's a little bit in the way. It's my starting knot. So I've made my little loop. I'm coming up inside the loop at the end of that first stitch there. Bring that through, pull towards me, and then that makes a little V shape, and then I can finish the stitch by going down at the end of the V shape. I'm going over that thread just to secure that in place. So you're making individual stitches, and then you're going to put those together to make your leaf shape. So I'm going to come up at the one side, down on the other, doesn't matter which one you start with, back up inside the shape at the end of the previous stitch, side that loop, tension it towards me, so I make that V, and I take my stitch over the thread to secure it in place. So just follow the shape of the leaf and just repeat lots of those little stitches. This is the stitch I've used throughout for this. Makes really lovely leaves. These ones are quite small, so you can do nice small ones. I'm using just 2 strands of green here. If you want larger leaf, you can use more strands. Up and down. I'm going to go near to that rose, not right up to that line, because I'm going to do my rose just over it. So that's the first one. And then I can come up here and I can do the second one, put that little point on first, and then repeat with my fly stitches down the leaf shape. So I'm just finishing off that one. I'm going to come in a little bit at the sides for this to get my nice leaf shape. Up at the end, make my little V. Goes down like so. So you can either weave that thread under the back of the leaves as I did for the rose, or you can just do 2 little stitches in the space that you're going to cover. Make sure you do them where you're going to stitch over them so you can't see them. Back to the top, cut off, ready to do my next rose. So now we're going to have a go at a bullion rose. So this is made up of individual bullion knot stitches. So I'm going to do a couple of colours here. You can change your colours if you're using individual stitches. We have a whole video on bullion knots and how to get to grips with them, because it can be a little bit tricky. So do check that one out if you want more details on this stitch, but I will go through it with you now. So I'm going to come up and down that little space away. Now that would be the length of my first knot. So I've come up here, down. I'm going to come back up where I brought my first thread out, but I'm not going to bring the needle all the way through. I'm going to wrap my thread around that needle until it meets the other thread. So it crosses that gap, it fills in that gap, and it meets that other thread. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold all those threads on my finger, and I'm going to pull the needle through. So you might need to wiggle it a little bit to get it come through. I'm using all 6 strands for this to make nice big dimensional roses, but you can use fewer strands if you want to. And then what happens is you get this triangle shape. Looks a bit ugly at this point, but it'll fix it, don't worry. Put your needle in the triangle, and then I'm going to pull those stitches along. So I'm pulling this thread outwards and my needle's just guiding those stitches in. I can just rub them underneath, even them out a little bit, push them up, even them out. So just keep fiddling with it until you're happy that you've got it how you want it. If you're not, just keep fiddling, it's not going to come undone. Just spread the stitches out evenly on that thread, and then just pull that one tight. So that's my first little knot. The knots will get bigger, so I'll show you a bigger one as well. To finish it, you just go down at the end of the knot. So that's my first one. And to make the centre of my rose, I'm going to do another one of those straight over the top of that one. in the same colour, so up where I want my knot to start, down where I want it to finish. You need a fair amount of thread to do this. Don't leave yourself a little bit of thread. Have enough to complete a knot with. So I've got enough that I can play with here in my hand. Needle comes up at the beginning. Don't bring it all the way through. It doesn't work if you do that. Wrap your thread around till it reaches the other side. Now we're going over the top of another knot, so I'm going to add a couple of extra ones on. Let's just add one on. So a little bit longer with my wraps now. Pull my needle through all the way up to the top. Makes that little triangle. Put your needle in the triangle. Coax those stitches down. You can use your thumbnail. Even them out. Pull it tight. So this one's going over the top, which is why we added the extra wraps on. And that's going to sit over the top. Take your needle down to finish off your stitch. Now what you need to do is to keep working these stitches around. So I'm going to come up just to the side of that one, and I'm going to come over the top here and down here. So you're sort of overlapping each one as you go round. So it doesn't matter too much. We're making the petals now. It's not a formula to it, but just have them sort of overlapping each other and gradually getting bigger as you go round. So up and down, back up where I started. Wrap the needle a little bit more because we're going over the top. Hold this with your thumb and your finger, not too tightly on that, so you won't get the needle through. Give it a little wiggle so you can pull that thread through. Needle inside the triangle. Push those wraps around that thread, push them down so they're nice and even. Keep fiddling if you need to keep fiddling till you're happy with it. And then you can start to shape them. So you can see how I'm lying that one down and that's coming around there now. You can go over the top, but it just piles up that way. So just lie it down. Needle goes in at the end to finish off the stitch. So I'm going to do a couple more of those. I'm going to change colour for the outer ones as well, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So just keep overlapping them from the previous one. That comes out from underneath that one. That comes out from underneath that one. So my last one's going to come out from under there. I'm going to take it down there. Just keep layering them up. You can put as many in as you want to. You can change colour as often as you want to. It's a really nice way of stitching it with lots of different colours and different dimension. So happy with that, and just down at the end to finish off my thread, weave it through on the back, and there's beautiful bullion rose. So let's have a look at cast on stitch. So used a lot in Brazilian embroidery. It's very similar to the bullion stitch but with an extra stage in it. So I'm going to start my thread here just off centre, and I'm going to take my needle down at the other end. So as I did with the bullion, I'm going to make a nice short stitch for the middle. I'm actually going to come up next to that first one. So my needle's sticking through now as close as I can get. Like so. Don't pull the needle all the way through. And I'm going to cast on these stitches to this needle. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this, so I suggest you have a go on a little bit of fabric first, because I've seen some people do it with the left hand, some people do it with the right hand. There's a couple of different methods. So I'm just going to show you one method, but do have a go and see if it works for you. Swap hands if you find it isn't. So I'm going to put this thread here, I'm going to cast them onto this needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my finger underneath the thread, wrap that around my finger like so, and then I'm going to twist my finger over. So it makes a little cross. I've got a loop with a cross on it, and I'm going to hook that onto the end of the needle and pull that down. I'll do that a couple of times, don't worry. So we're wrapping it around the needle like we did for the bullion, but it's got this little extra sort of twist in it. So finger underneath the thread, just making sure the thread goes around my finger. Turn my finger over. So I've got a loop with a little cross, and then I'm just catching the end of that needle with my finger, and I'm going to pull it down the needle. Cast on another stitch. Don't pull it too tightly because the needle's got to go through these stitches, but do bring it down on top of the previous one. Finger underneath, thread goes under my finger, twist it over, hook it on your needle. You can see I've got two hands for this, so if you can use a frame you'll find it much easier. Under my finger, twist it over, hook that loop onto the needle. So I need to do as many of these stitches that will cover that little gap, so that's going to be enough. So what I need to do now is to pull my needle through those stitches. So I'm going to push the needle all the way up to the end, like so, and I'm going to pull that through the stitches. Might be a little bit tighter now because we've actually knotted around them. So just hold the stitches, wiggle the needle, and the needle comes through. And then again you get that little triangle like you did for the bullion knot. You can put your needle in there and push those stitches up. You can use your finger if you want to. So you get that little knot, but we've got this really nice decorative edge now. And I'm going to go back down at the end of the stitch to complete it, and that's one cast on stitch done. So I'll have another one, another go at another one and show you a second stitch next to that one. So I'm going to do my second stitch over the top of this one to make the centre of the rose. So I'm going to come up here just above it, back down over the top, and then my needle is going to come out where that first stitch was, as close as you can to it. Don't pull the needle all the way through. And then I'm going to cast on my stitches again. So finger goes under the thread, thread goes round the finger, turn it over to make your loop, cast it onto the needle, finger underneath, wrap around, turn, hook onto the needle, pull it tight, not too tight you can't get the needle up, but tight and up against that first stitch that you did. So I'll do a couple more, round my finger, twist my finger over, loop goes over the needle, pull that down to the previous stitch. I'm using a tapestry needle for this so that when I put my finger on the end to hook my loop over, I'm not sticking the needle in my finger. So you might want to try that just to make sure that you don't hurt your finger. So I've got to come over the top of here now, so I need a few extra stitches on to make sure I get over that first stitch. So I'm going to push my needle up as far through as it will go, give it a wiggle, comes through those stitches, makes that triangle, needle in the triangle, push the stitches up over the top, and then you can see that really nice frilly edge on it. It makes really lovely edges to the petals of roses, which is why it works so well for this. Back down at the end to finish it off. So this is a bit trickier to do if you've only got a short length of thread, so I'm going to change my thread now. Give yourself a little bit more thread and then it's much easier to hook it onto the needle. So I'm going to change my thread, and then we're going to do exactly the same as we've done before. We're going to start overlapping the petals. Each one of these is a petal. Going to overlap and work our way around and fill in that shape. Right, so I've gone all the way round, I've changed colour, so just overlapping each one. That one comes under there, goes there, so this final one is coming from underneath and going around there. Just want to mention a couple of things before I pull the final one through. I've tried this with 4 strands, just a little bit easier to get the needle through and to get it through the fabric. Just watch for the twist. It does twist up a lot when you put the cast on stitches on the needle, so just in between each stitch, just untwist your thread. Make sure you're back straight before you start the next one, because you'll end up fighting that a little bit. And if you are struggling to get it through the needle, you can use some pliers on that and just grab the needle with that and pull it through with the pliers. That helps and is a little bit easier on your fingers. There's quite a few of these stitches going into one of these flowers. I'm just going to pull the last one through. So just remember to put on enough stitches to get right around the top here. These ones on the outside are longer than the others, and you need a few more stitches to make them fluff up. So lots of stitches, and then just fiddle with them to make sure that that stitch comes to the outside of the petal and you get that beautiful edge on your petal. So they need a little bit of coaxing into place, but each one is an individual, so you can just do that as you go. When you're happy with where it is, you can just take your needle to the back to finish it off. Finish it underneath on the back, and then you can just have a little play with it. Just make sure everything's sitting in the right place, and you can keep going. You can make your petals as fluffy as you want. You can put more around the bottom, and that gives it a really nice sort of different view of the rose. So it's a little bit of a trickier one, this one, but worth persevering with, because I think this is the most realistic rose of all of them. So this rose is a little bit different from the others. For those ones we've used a stitch to create the rose. This one I have drawn the rose pattern like this, and I'm going to fill it in with a stitch. I'm going to fill it in with a satin. I've got a couple of designs for you on that free PDF I mentioned. So this is the simpler version. This is the one I'm going to show you because the technique is the same, but I've also got this one. here. So a little bit more of a complex one, but exactly the same stitch. You've got 2 you can choose from there to have a go at. So I've traced that design onto my fabric. So I've used the water erasable pen again, just in case I don't go over the edge. If you don't have one of those and you just want to use a permanent pen is good. Make sure you cover up your edges. So I'm going to do each shape separately, and I'm actually putting a split stitch around it, raises the edge up a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to have a neater edge, and just make syour rows look a bit more three-dimensional. So I'll show you how to do that now. So I've got 2 strands in the needle for this, so I've got just a couple of strands in a small needle. This is a little bit finer now. I'm just doing a forward stitch, coming back up in the middle of it, splitting that stitch. I'm going to cover that outline with it. So I'm just doing this little raised edge that I can work my satin stitch over. You have a whole video with the details of satin stitch in it. It can get very technical if you want it to. Doesn't need to though, just follow what I'm doing in this one, you'll be fine. So just splitting that stitch so that they overlap and make this nice edge, just nice short stitches. This changes shape quite a bit, so follow the shape. If you can't split it from underneath, you can split it from the top. All the way around to make that nice edge. So I'm going to do my satin stitch on this petal over this side, and again I'm using 2 strands of the stranded, so nice fine thread for this one. I'm going to go straight over the top, so you see me starting in the middle. That's good, that just sets the angle. Nice long stitch over the top. I'm going to come up right next to it, right against that split stitch edge. That gives me this really nice smooth edge, and straight down next to it. So each stitch should sit. That's really hard to say. Next to the previous one. Don't ask me to say it again. They should be close to each other, so there's no gap. It's getting to that point in the day, ladies and gentlemen. So up next to that one, across the shape, they should all be the same angle. Down, you can just angle your needle in slightly to that previous one. That gives you a nice finish as well. And just right across the shape. So whatever the shape is doing, just follow it. You're just covering that shape with these straight stitches next to each other, so there's no gaps. And you can see on this that I've changed colour, so I'm doing this darker colour at the bottom for the bottom petals. I've got a medium colour in the middle and a lighter colour on the top, so again an opportunity to shade it if you want to. If you did a larger design than this, you would probably need to go into a long and short stitch. You can't do satin stitches really long because they're too long then, so you'd need to change the stitch slightly. So if you're familiar with long and short, you could do that stitch, but it's nice for little small designs like this, just to do this straight stitch. So a completely different effect from those other ones, but a really nice one to have a go at. Practice your satin stitch, make these beautiful smooth shapes. So I'm going to do the stem in the same way in the satin stitch. So I've put 2 rows of split stitch down either side, and I'm going to do this at an angle. This looks nice for longer pieces. Coming up next to it, down next to that previous one, so keep your stitches nice and tight, and just a little bit of satin stitch all the way down there. So you could use a couple of rows of chain stitch if you want to. You don't have to satin stitch it. Some rows of stem stitch, whatever you like to make a little stem on it. You could put some leaves on it. That other design has got a couple of leaves on it, so you could do those the same ways I've done previously. But just to show you this technique of satin stitch, and do check out our video on it if you want more information on it, because it can get a bit complex. I'm just going to finish that stem off. So last stitch there, I think I'm going to call that done. So a little bit of a different one there. So that's a rose in satin stitch. It's a really unusual one now. We're going to do woven picot roses. Now I've done a video before on woven picot leaves, so if you wanted to put the 2 together, that would look really great. So do go and check that one out. We're going to do an actual whole rose, so they're going to look a little bit like this. So I'm doing it in 3 colours. I've got my 6 strands again with this one, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually wrap it around a pin and weave through it. So the distance of this is a little bit tricky. So I've worked out to get about a centimetre diameter flower, you need about 3 centimetres of weaving. So about 3 times the diameter of your flower roughly. So again, have a go at this. I'm not sure, work it out because it'd be awful if it was too short. So I'm going to go 3 centimetres from the centre of my flower. 1, 2, 3. It's just over an inch and a length. And I'm going to put my pin out there and I'm just going to lie it down in the fabric and push the end in and just make sure the point's hidden so I don't get that caught with my thread. So I'm going to wrap this around the top of my pin like so and come back down the other side. So I've started this thread just off the centre and I'm going to come down here just off the centre, so either side of that central point. And then I'm going to come back up next to that first stitch there where I came out originally to the side of that. And now what I'm going to do is weave back and forth. So we've only got 2 warp threads, so I'm going to go over and under them. So I'm going to go over that first one, under the second one, pull it tight to the bottom, and then back the other way. So now I'm going over that one and under that one. Just going to work my way up the whole shape like that. Make sure you have enough thread. You can't start a new thread when you're doing the weaving, so give yourself a fairly long piece. You can just push the stitches down as well, that'll give you a nice dense rows. So just back and forth, super easy to do this one. So I'm just going to go right up to the top of the pin, to the pin head up here, and then I'll show you what comes next. So when you get near to the top, you want to get as much weaving in as possible. So I'm just going to slide the needle under, keep going, see if I can get as many passes as possible in there, right up to that pin. We'll get one more in there. Go right to the point. When we're at the point, we can pull the pin out. So what that gives us is this loose piece of weaving. You can see how they make great leaves. Obviously, you wouldn't do it that long for a rose, but just makes this really wonderful 3-dimensional little shape. So what I'm going to do now is coil it up and make a little rose out of it. So you can leave your thread on. We're going to use that to sew it down. So you can either just literally coil it around in a circle, like so, and it doesn't go as far as you think it's going to go when you make all that weaving. So you can coil it up like that. What I think is a bit more interesting though is just to give it a bit of a twist. So I'm going to actually turn the weaving round and it gets this little twist in it, and then it's a case of just sort of playing with it. If you want to put a pin in just to hold it, you can. Just going to twist that again. So you want to sort of mould this a little bit, but it's not going to come undone. It's not going to go anywhere. So you can play as much as you like. You can put some pins in just to hold it in place. You can pull it a little bit tighter. Happy with that. And then just to secure it, I'm going to go down at the end of my weaving. Take the thread through to the back. That will just hold it in position, but you're going to need to sew this down because there's nothing holding this bit here down. So if you're happy with that, then you can just come up at the edge. I'm just going to go over just to hold that in place. I'm using a tapestry needle to do the weaving, but it'll be okay to do these last 2 stitches with the same needle. So up underneath, just secure it, and it's secure here, here and here. So I'm just doing it in 3 places just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And I think those are really quite exciting. I do like those ones. Simple to do and fun to have a little go with the weaving. I'll just cut my initial starting knot off. So again, just have a little play with the length of that, roughly 3 times the diameter of the flower you want, but have a little practice and see how it comes out. And that's a really nice and simple but really effective woven picot rose. So I hope you're inspired to have a go at some roses. Lots of fun stitches for you there. Don't forget that free PDF with the designs on. The link for that is in the description below this video. Check out this video up here if you want to see lots of different ways to stitch some leaves to go with your roses. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you have. I'll see you next time.